Hello everybody and welcome to, I guess you could say, the second part of my little Fredbeau story. So pretty much in the last video that I did, which I would probably suggest you watch before this one, because it's pretty much just a story inside of a story. So in my last video I spoke about the Fredbeau trip, which I was very scared of, but then eventually while I was there I had like the trip of a lifetime. And this is going to be a story that happened to me on the Wednesday of me being there. So you don't have to, obviously it's a free country, but I think it would help if you watch the previous video if you haven't seen that already. It would just make a lot more sense. But anyway, let's jump into this video. So this video is going to be the story about how I thought I was gonna actually like lose my fingers because of how cold I was one day in Fredbeau. So it was a Wednesday and we'd pretty much been skiing for a few days now. Now what happened was we'd wake up and then we'd have to have breakfast and we'd head off into the slopes from about 10 o'clock till 5 o'clock. Now that day we had a little lesson and this day was really quite cold. What happened was the day before it had snowed, but that day it was sleeting, which is pretty much a mixture between, it's pretty much ice, it's pretty much snowing, but it's not snow yet because it's not that cold enough, and it's raining ice, and that's the worst thing ever. Now after our lessons, which were about an hour and a half, we could go off and do what we liked. So what I decided to do, I decided to go off with one of my teachers, and I was with this other girl at the time. We went up into the slopes, but it was raining, which you got to remember. And what happened was the chairlifts heading up would collect. It took a good 5 minutes to get to the top, and as we were coming down, they'd collect all of the water. Now I was pretty dry at the time. What happened was you'd wear like, you know, you wear the skiing stuff, and the thing is I didn't want to get any of that wet, because once you get that wet you're not going to dry. But to get to the top of the mountain you had to go on the chairlift, and I sat down on the chairlift and it was just wet as. You're just sitting there and you can't do anything, you're just heading up, and it was just the worst feeling ever. Anyway, I get off the chairlift and I go up and I'm like, good lord, like literally I'd just say from my knees to like my hips was pretty much just completely soaked, and that sucked because it was so cold. It was absolutely freezing. Now we decided to continue on and we kept going down, and there was all these different slopes we passed, and we decided to go down this one slope. Now as I headed down all the slopes, like it's still sleeting, so it would just hit my face and hit my goggles and I couldn't see, and I crashed a lot on this day. At one point there was this group of like 3 blokes and a woman getting taught, and I just nearly smashed into them, and I literally barely just missed them, and I jumped off and I just landed and kept rolling. I just landed next to them. I just stayed face down in the snow for about 10 seconds. They didn't do anything. I just got up and I was like, oh, sorry about that. And then I went off. But I kept crashing, and then that just made me like hit the floor more, and then snow would go into my gloves, and every single time they go in my gloves it would just make it wet and it would not dry. I kept crashing, and I was feeling cold from like, you know, half my body was completely soaked. But the worst feeling was all that snow that just kept getting into my gloves. I remember getting to the end of a slope and taking off my glove, and my hand, I'd never seen that kind of colour, but my hand was just such a different colour to what it is now. It just did not look right. And taking my gloves off was so painful because I took it off and like I couldn't feel my fingers. I still had a little bit, but I was really starting to lose it. I went to my teacher and I said, look, I think I'm gonna have to head back because my fingers are starting to really hurt. And he's like, nah, it's fine, just put your gloves back on, they'll warm up, just keep doing this, and you know, they'll keep going, and you just gotta keep going, you know. So that's what I did. I went back on the slope and went up and down again. I kept crashing, and then I remember I crashed once again, and then another giant bit of snow went both into my gloves, and that was it. That was just the end point. I was like, look, we've got to head back. At this point it was completely like you could barely see. There was so much sleet coming down, and it was the worst because every time it would hit you, it's water, and it would just, you got so wet. I was completely soaked. I was completely soaked now. There was not one part of me that wasn't soaked. My boots were filled with water. That was the most horriblest feeling. Every time I walked, I could just feel the water in my boots. It was just, oh. I was wearing a jumper underneath, and all around here was just soaking wet. And then we got on the chairlift and we headed to the top of the mountain. We had about a 10-minute walk from there to the lifts that took us down to back where our hotel was. Now guys, this was the coldest I have ever been in my entire life. We had a 10-minute walk, but it took us 20 minutes. We were like in a blizzard. Imagine just walking in a blizzard. That's what it was like. But you gotta understand, I was soaked just from my feet all the way up to my head. I was completely soaked. But the worst of all were my hands, and I had to use these constantly because I had my 2 poles, because I was walking and skiing at the same time. And I'd lost, when I got to the top of the mountain, I'd lost feeling in my hands. I could not feel them. They had been numb. They'd been numb for about 5 minutes. And I said to my teacher, I said, look, I seriously think there's something wrong with my hands because I cannot feel them. And I'm gonna have to go and have a shower or something because my hands, I can't feel them. And it was really freaking me out. I even got to the point where I was like opening up my gloves and like just blowing in just to get a little bit of heat inside, and did not help at all. We had to just ski back / walk back, it was incredible like that we actually made it. Because there were so many points where I just felt like giving up and just sitting down because I was so knackered. And I was thinking to myself, I thought to myself, like, I've never been this cold in my life. And this was one of the points in the trip where I really wish I was at home or just somewhere warm or in a shower, because it was dreadful. And I remember going back into the lift. We finally got to the lift, and I was just knackered. Like, getting up the last hill to the lift was like, it just took so much effort and energy, and I finally got there. I remember sitting on the ski lift and like my hands like shaking and me taking my gloves off, and like it was just, they were so numb. They were like, my hands were blue, they'd lost all the blood. And I honestly think, and I'm being serious here, if I would have stayed up there for another half an hour, I don't know what would have happened. I feel like something bad would have happened, because I know in the snow like you can get frostbite and all that. I felt like I was heading down that trail to frostbite. Maybe not, I'm not really a doctor, but that's just the way I felt about it. It felt like my hands had been left in ice, and they were just left in there. Because the thing is, my hands, they weren't getting any warmer because in my gloves, they were freezing cold and filled with ice. And I had them in there for like an hour. My hands were pretty much in ice for an hour, and it felt dreadful. Now, usually we're supposed to stay until 5 o'clock, but I got down at about 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock, and I just went to my hotel room. I took all my gear off, and I said, nah, that's it for today. I don't care what the teachers say. Like, usually they come in and say you have to go out again because, you paid good money for this and get out, which is totally understandable. But I couldn't do that. I had to just go, have a shower. But first off, I remember I went up to the tap and I turned it on to heat, and I put my hands under, and it was like excruciating because just the difference from freezing cold to hot, it really hurt. But I kept them under for a while, and then I went and had a shower, and I got the feeling back into my hands. It's the coldest I'd ever felt in my life. Like I said, maybe I wouldn't have lost my fingers, I don't know, I'm not really a doctor, but it really did feel like it. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys tomorrow for a proper vlog. I hope you enjoyed my 2 little part series of my stories that I did in Fredbo. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and I will see you guys tomorrow back for a normal vlog. Thank you guys, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.